A little known fact about Demon Slayer is that Giyu openly admitted that Sabito was stronger than him, so it makes you wonder, just what would happen if Sabito survived the final selection and was the one that met Tanjiro? How would this affect the plot, and more importantly, just how strong would Tanjiro be if this happened? After thinking about it for a long time, one thing's for sure, and that's that Sabito is going to be a monster of a Hashira. But before we do all of that, let's talk about who Sabito really is. Well, we first saw Sabito while Tanjiro was training for the final selection exam, but Sabito at that time was already dead, and just helped Tanjiro in the form of a ghost. So let's take a look at his backstory real quick. Sabito's backstory actually started when he was taken in by Sakonji Urokudaki, Tanjiro's trainer and the former Water Hashira. They were orphans at the time, but they quickly found another family with Urokudaki. Yep, the three of them trained under him for the final selection exam so that they could be demon slayers. And as we all know, things didn't really play out that well. The hand demon hunted down all of Urokudaki's students because Urokudaki was the one who imprisoned him on Mount Fujikasane. Out of all three of them, Makomo, Giyu, and Sabito, Makomo was taken in by Urokudaki a lot earlier than the other two, so she didn't actually meet the two boys as she was killed first when she lost control of her emotions and acted recklessly against the demon. So what about Sabito? Well, Sabito and Giyu were the ones who trained together and they became very close friends. It was stated by Giyu that Sabito was a lot stronger than him during this time, to the point that Sabito actually managed to kill a lot of demons and save dozens of other test takers during the exams. Everything was going well until he met the hand demon, the same one that killed Makomo. He tried to kill it, but because the demon's neck was so thick, or his blade must have been worn out from all the fighting, Sabito's sword snapped and he eventually got killed. But why didn't Giyu help him? You see, Giyu was actually wounded early on in the test, and Sabito actually saved him. Sabito then entrusted him to take care of a wounded test taker while he went on to continue fighting, so they got separated. This is the reason why Giyu couldn't help him, and if Giyu was there, he could have died too. A sad fact about that test was that because Sabito kept on killing demon after demon, all test takers passed, and Sabito was the only one that got killed. This is the reason why Giyu also still doubts himself, even if he became the Water Hashira. Adding to that, a neat Easter egg is that half of Giyu's yukata was from Sabito's original yukata, and Giyu wears it as a memory of his friend. But what if I change things a bit? What if Sabito didn't die from the hand demon? Well, there are two ways we could do this. First is that Sabito would never meet the hand demon in the first place, avoiding his fate, or second, Sabito actually won against it. To fit his character better, I choose the second option. However, how does this even play out? Well, we have to change the fact that Sabito's blade's durability is higher than ever, and that it won't break easily. Another thing I would like to change is that Sabito fights fewer demons during his time on Mount Fujikasane. I think another reason why he failed to kill the hand demon is that he was low on energy because he fought for so long and against so many demons. It might cause the death of a handful of participants, but I mean, Sabito's a beast, so I guess it's a fair trade. So with that out of the way, as Sabito fights the hand demon, he'd be able to perform water breathing techniques better, and his overall attack strength is enough to seriously wound it. If Tanjiro at that stage was enough to cut through its neck using the first form of water breathing, then I think Sabito can do it too. Why am I so confident in this? Well, it's the fact that in the original timeline, while Tanjiro failed to split the boulder in half with his sword, Sabito was already bodying him left and right, and it took Tanjiro another 6 months of more training for his sword to reach Sabito's ghost. So going back to Sabito's fight against the hand demon, the fight is long and hard, and the hand demon is even able to throw him around a bit, giving him some light wounds. But as Sabito gains back his momentum, he's able to push the huge demon into a corner, and as it relies on its thick neck, Sabito manages to slice through and decapitate it. With the hand demon out of the way, can Sabito survive the rest of the final selection? In my mind, as Sabito finishes off the hand demon, he quickly retreats and tries to regroup with Giyu. They somehow meet deep within the woods, and as the test reaches its end, they help each other survive. After this, a handful of test takers die, but both Sabito and Giyu are alive. This means that Giyu would never doubt himself, and that his yukata would have maroon as its only color. With Sabito alive, both he and Giyu go back to Urokudaki, and for once, the old man is happy that his students didn't die. And now that the two are full-fledged demon slayers, Sabito and Giyu take mission after mission, and both of them climb the ranks of the Demon Slayer Corps. Their reputations also skyrocket, with Giyu being a calculated swordsman while Sabito is an aggressive fighter. To make them look even cooler, they get the nickname Shijima Tohamon, which, if translated to English, is tranquil and ripple, symbolizing their fighting styles and how they use the water breathing technique. But this actually puts us in a bit of a dilemma. Who's gonna be the Hashira between the both of them? Well, I'd like to keep things interesting. Since the Demon Slayer Corps can't decide on who will get the title, both of them agree to a friendly duel using wooden swords. The first one to fall on his back or surrender will lose. Giyu and Sabito ready themselves, and this is the first time they'll be fighting against each other ever since they took the final selection. Both would stand at the ready with swords drawn high. What I think Sabito would do is that he'll open up with a strong attack like the 9th form, and as he was about to deliver the overhead slash, he's surprised that Giyu manages to block it with the 4th form. Both of them were evenly matched, and the duel lasted so long that both their swords were chipped and bent. Thinking that his sword is going to break soon, Giyu pulls out his trump card. It's his own form of water breathing that we've already seen in the series, the 11th form, Dead Calm. Seeing Giyu improve so much made Sabito smile, and he would probably say, "You're fighting like a true man," or something along those lines. But Giyu isn't the only one that's been secretly training, as Sabito has a card of his own. As Giyu ceases all movement, Sabito uses what he calls Surf Breaker, an all-out attack that's the complete opposite of Dead Calm, which forces the user to move erratically to build up energy before they perform a blitzing overhead slash towards their opponent that can't theoretically be blocked because of how much force it has. So, who would win between the two prodigies? Going back to the fight, Sabito finishes his build-up and moves towards Giyu so fast that by the time onlookers saw him, he was already behind Giyu. But the thing is that Giyu managed to block Sabito's attack, but the problem was that his sword was cut in half, giving Sabito the win. Yet, before he could even look back, Sabito's sword also snapped moments after Giyu's fell to the ground, which is a hint at just how close the fight was. And seeing as how both of them are so close, I think Giyu would actually be happy that Sabito won and wouldn't be jealous of him at all. Unlike Yoriichi's twin, who was so salty, he just joined forces with Michael Jackson. Anyway, Sabito would become the Water Hashira, and per his request, Giyu would become his Suguko. And if you don't know what a Suguko is, it's basically what Kanao is to Shinobu, and if Sabito can't perform his duties as a Hashira anymore, then Giyu would be the one to step in. Bros will be bros, and the legend of the Tranquil and Ripple duo live on, stronger than ever. So now that we've established Sabito's role in the story, how would he even meet Tanjiro? And I think you already know the answer to that one. But before we do, make sure to like and subscribe so I don't feed you to the hand demon. It all starts back in episode 1. Long story short, the same things happen, and Tanjiro arrives to find that his entire family was massacred and that the only survivor, Nezuko, even became a man-eating demon. While Tanjiro is being pinned by Nezuko, Sabito and Giyu come out from the trees and push her back into a corner. An interesting thing about this encounter is that Sabito might be more aggressive than Giyu, and the way he handles this situation could become different for better or for worse. So what happens next? Well, I think Sabito would definitely wound Nezuko, and Giyu would try to hold Tanjiro back, stopping him from protecting his sister, but at one point, Sabito realizes that Nezuko is fighting to protect Tanjiro and not eat him. This adds a whole new perspective on how he views demons, and seeing Sabito hesitate might make Giyu irritated. If this does happen, Giyu would be the one to try and kill Nezuko for good. Surprisingly, Sabito would block his attack and tell him to stand down. This gives Tanjiro the chance to fight back, and he does the same thing where he runs around and throws the axe in the air, but this time it lands smack dab in the middle of the two, narrowly missing both of their faces. This move shocks both Sabito and Giyu, and they immediately take an interest in Tanjiro too. And because they see that Nezuko fights them to protect her brother instead of eating them, they knock out the Kamado siblings and talk to decide what to do with them. Eventually, both Sabito and Giyu agree that they're best sent to someone wiser. So Sabito asks Giyu to deliver the siblings to Urokodaki. Once Tanjiro wakes up, Giyu informs him that his sister is safe and that after he buries his family, he needs to follow him if they want to survive. Tanjiro agrees, and after some time, Tanjiro, Giyu, and Nezuko go to the temple where they meet the temple demon. But since Giyu's here, will Tanjiro need to fight it? Well, for this situation, I think Giyu will handle it since Sabito told him to deliver them safely. This is also the location where Tanjiro met Urokodaki in the original timeline, so they'll most likely meet him here too. Urokodaki then slaps both Tanjiro and Giyu. He scolds Tanjiro for relying on Giyu too much, and then he yells at Giyu for babying Tanjiro. Urokodaki then gives Tanjiro the same speech as he did in the main storyline, where Tanjiro must not let his sister harm other humans, or else he should kill her and himself. After that, Urokodaki thanks Giyu and tells him to send Sabito his regards. This is where Tanjiro's journey as a demon slayer starts, and it mostly stays the same until the 6-month mark, where he was struggling to cut the boulder. But why here? Well, this is where Sabito and Makomo show up, but now that Sabito's alive, who's gonna replace him? Or will Makomo even come out? When looking at the bigger picture, Sabito was the one who taught Tanjiro most of his combat skills, while Makomo focused on helping him master total concentration breathing. While it may seem that Sabito had a bigger impact on Tanjiro's growth, total concentration breathing is an important technique that every Demon Slayer should learn. Makomo was also the reason why Tanjiro eventually became strong enough to spar against Sabito, as she was the one who taught him the fundamentals, while Sabito was the one he applied his learnings to. Another student of Rokadaki might teach Tanjiro combat skills, but aside from that, things will most likely take a little bit longer. It would take him maybe a month longer at most before he could cut the boulder, but after that, he would still pass the final selection exam, and seeing as the hand demon's no longer there, his test would go on smoothly. With Tanjiro officially being a Demon Slayer, there's a chance that Sabito will take him in, and most likely train him himself. When he would go on missions, he would be with Sabito and Giyu, and this completely changes the entire timeline. So, what are the things that become different? Kidnapper's Bog Arc. The first arc is the Kidnapper's Bog Arc. This is Tanjiro's first mission, and I think for now, it's most likely going to be the same. Sabito and Giyu would not interfere here, as they would like to see him in action on his own. Nothing interesting would happen in this arc, and with the help of Nezuko, Tanjiro would be able to defeat the Swamp Demon like in the original story. Asakusa Arc. Moving on, this is where things get interesting. You see, after Tanjiro completes his mission, he's instructed by the Crow to go to Asakusa for the next mission. But the main difference here is that he would meet with Giyu so that he could learn more about how to fight demons, and train with him right after so he could perfect water breathing. And of course, as he's traveling, he meets Muzan first, and the whole commotion happens. However, this is where things change. When Muzan turns the man into a demon to distract Tanjiro, Giyu immediately appears and beheads the man. He then grabs Tanjiro and they run away before the police can arrive. But how would things play out because Giyu saved Tanjiro? Well, there's a high chance that they won't meet Tamayo and Yushiro. And as you probably know by now, Tamayo was the one that developed the anti-Kibutsuji drug, so if they don't discover her, there's a chance the fight against Muzan would be harder. After Giyu and Tanjiro reach safety, Tanjiro tells Giyu that the one he found was Kibutsuji Muzan, and he's sure of it because of the smell. This leads to Giyu reporting everything to Sabito via a crow, and they wait for further instructions with Nezuko. But just a few minutes after, the Tamari and Arrow Demon arrive and launch a surprise attack. Luckily, Giyu was there to block their attack. Both Tanjiro and Giyu ready themselves and the fight starts. Because Giyu was already Hashira level and didn't only reach the rank because of Sabito, he was able to easily overwhelm the Arrow Demon. I mean, the Arrow Demon wasn't even lower moon level, so he'd literally just be fodder for Giyu. Meanwhile, Tanjiro holds off the Tamari Demon. Since the Tamari Demon was alone, she tried to retreat, but before she could, Sabito was already behind her. He immediately cuts off her head, and the fight ends then and there. Although the Demon Slayers won, I think that this encounter might have a hidden consequence. What is it? Well, you have to watch to find out. Anyway, Sabito asks Tanjiro how he was able to identify Muzan, and Tanjiro said that he can smell him. This confuses both Sabito and Giyu, and honestly, it would confuse me too, but they believe him. And seeing that he's one of the keys to finding and eliminating Muzan, Sabito orders him to always be with Giyu or him, and that as of now, he will directly answer to Sabito. Suzumi Mansion Arc. Tanjiro is now hard stuck with Sabito, and if you know the plot, there's one big change that's about to happen, and I think a bunch of you aren't going to like it. What is it? Well, after his mission in Asakusa, Tanjiro was supposed to meet Zenitsu, and they were supposed to go on a mission together which would lead them to Suzumi Mansion. Because Tanjiro is with Sabito and Giyu, both of them would not meet, and this completely shifts the way this arc plays out. For one, Zenitsu and Inosuke would be the only ones to fight Kyogai, and we can't say for sure what will happen there because there are so many possibilities. Inosuke and Zenitsu are definitely strong, and Inosuke can most likely defeat Kyogai if he gets Zenitsu's support, but the two hated each other at the beginning, and they might not be able to beat Kyogai if they don't cooperate. The outcome could be that Zenitsu just takes the children away while Inosuke is busy fighting Kyogai. And if Inosuke does beat Kyogai, he'll return to the mountains and officially join the Demon Slayer Corps. Worst case scenario, one of the kids gets eaten by Kyogai and he grows stronger. Zenitsu would find himself in the Wisteria house and he would rest for a while before being sent on a mission to provide backup to Demon Slayers sent to Mount Natagumo. But it's not going to end well. Mount Natagumo arc. Why? Well, this time Zenitsu is totally alone. He doesn't have Inosuke, Tanjiro, or even Nezuko. He didn't continue when there are 4 of them, and only tried catching up because he remembered Nezuko. With no inspiration and as afraid as ever, his sparrow might convince him to continue the mission, but that forest has become even more dangerous than it was in the original timeline. When Zenitsu arrives there, he finds that everyone's dead. And it hurts me so much, but this includes one of the best characters in all of Demon Slayer, Murata. The only reason why Murata survived was because of Tanjiro and Inosuke, and now that he's not there, Murata's fate is sealed. Not to mention, as he enters the mountain, he meets the brother Spider Demon. Now, Zenitsu soloed this guy in the main story, but remember, he was poisoned and was about to die if not for Shinobu coming. So is there still a chance that Zenitsu survives? Well, here's the thing. Shinobu and Giyu were originally the ones that were sent to Mount Nataguma as reinforcements, but seeing as Giyu, Sabito, and Tanjiro were now essentially a team, if that happens, then Zenitsu has no access to an antidote and would die a slow, horrible death, and I think that's exactly what would happen. The 3 of them arrive and see Zenitsu struggling to breathe. Since they don't know what to do, Sabito orders Giyu to end Zenitsu's suffering. Tanjiro might try to fight them on this one, but Giyu would still do it as they know there's no saving him. Which means this is the end of Zenitsu's story. Together, these 3 rampage throughout the mountain, killing each spider demon one by one until there's only one left, Rui. So is Sabito just going to blitz him like Giyu did in the original storyline? Well, again, I like to keep things interesting, so I'm going to make the decisions in this fight. Tanjiro is still a demon slayer in training, so Sabito wants him to reach even greater heights by experiencing a true life and death situation. Sabito orders Tanjiro to go fight Rui and tells him that no matter what happens, he and Giyu are not going to interfere even if Tanjiro dies. With no choice, Tanjiro agrees and goes on to fight a really angry Rui. The fight doesn't take long before Rui pushes Tanjiro into a corner. Giyu wants to help, but Sabito stops him. Thinking that he's gonna die for real, Tanjiro unlocks the Hinokami Kagura and manages to push Rui back. Nezuko even breaks out of her cage and helps him, where she also shows off her blood demon art, pyrokinesis. The siblings were about to kill Rui when he increased his usage of his blood demon art and managed to subdue Nezuko and encircle Tanjiro with his threads. Tanjiro tried to fight back, but he was too wounded and had no energy left. Before the threads could kill him though, Sabito rushes in and decapitates Rui in one strike, ending the battle. He comforts Tanjiro and Nezuko, saying that he's proud of them, and they return home as all of the demons were now killed. Rehabilitation arc. What's supposed to happen next is the Hashira meeting, where they discuss what to do with Nezuko, and I think it occurs here too, but Nezuko and Tanjiro just have more backers this time around. And does Sabito defend them? For the most part, he does, but he also agrees to Sanemi's test of making sure that Nezuko can resist her urge to not eat humans. Nezuko still passes it, and since most of the Hashiras respect Sabito because of his strength, and he talks to everyone, unlike Giyu, they agree to let Nezuko in the core, as she was also given the support of Kaguya Ubayashiki. Time goes on, and now that Tanjiro and Nezuko are officially accepted by the core, and after seeing the Hinokami Kagura firsthand, Sabito gives Tanjiro access to the history of sun breathing via the files in their headquarters, and also the remnants of the generational flame Hashira record of the Rengoku family that was ripped apart by Shinjiro. With this increased knowledge of his breathing technique and Sabito's guidance, Tanjiro goes on to place water breathing on the sidelines and focus on perfecting the Hinokami Kagura. For the most part, he stays in headquarters, only accepting small-time missions as he focuses on training and uncovering the truth behind his breathing technique. Mugen Train arc. With Tanjiro gone, Inosuke still may be fighting demons in the mountains, and Zenitsu's chilling underground. Rengoku is all alone when the Mugen Train arc happens. This means that the fight is going to be harder. So what's going to happen to Rengoku and the passengers? Well, to be honest, Rengoku might escape from Enmu's blood demon art, but because he's all alone, Rengoku can't save all of the passengers, and most of them are going to be killed. He also managed to kill Enmu, but it took too long, and although the mission was successful, there were a lot of sacrifices. Another thing is that Akaza is still going to be there, but why? That's because in the anime, we eventually get to know that Akaza appeared in the Mugen Train because he was trying to find the blue spider lily. The same thing's going to happen here again, and Rengoku cannot retreat because he still has to save the surviving passengers. Both Akaza and Rengoku fight it out, and just like in the main timeline, Rengoku becomes a donut, but he still manages to buy enough time for Sunrise to appear, which makes Akaza retreat. Entertainment District arc. The same thing also happens in the Entertainment District arc. Tengen is all alone, and even if he brings some Demon Slayer core members from the Butterfly Mansion with him, they are still technically not Demon Slayers that can fight normal demons, much less the Upper Moon Six siblings. Tengen and his wives also get killed along with Aoi and the other girls. And now, the Demon Slayers have lost 2 Hashiras while the upper moons are still complete. This leads us to the battle in the Swordsmith Village. Swordsmith Village Arc. Now this is where Tanjiro will reappear. After training for some time with Sabito and Giyu, he's become strong enough that he could easily beat a lower moon all on his own. But there's one thing that he's lacking, and it's the manifestation of his Demon Slayer mark. You see, his Demon Slayer mark started slowly showing itself during his battle against Yutaro and Daki in the original timeline, but since he wasn't involved in those events, it's not as opened up as before. Not only that, but he still hasn't fully bonded with Kanao. But it might manifest soon because Sabito and Giyu sent him to the Swordsmith Village with Nezuko to fix his sword since it's in poor condition due to his harsh training. There, he meets the same characters including Genya and Muichiro. And of course, Hantengu and Gyoko attack the village. Yet, here's the thing. Tanjiro is OP. He's stronger than he was in the original timeline, and he mastered total concentration breathing, and unlocked most of the forms of sun breathing. So what does this mean? Well, the fight is going to be much easier, and I think what would happen is that Tanjiro would still have a hard fight. I mean, they're upper moons and still strong as hell, so Tanjiro would have to struggle quite a bit. However, once he manifests his Demon Slayer mark and affects the other Hashira around him, they could easily turn the tide and win. Yet, the biggest difference this arc has from the original one is that Nezuko isn't going to be human since they haven't made contact with Tamayo. Hashira Training Arc. This leads us to the Hashira Training Arc. Nothing much happens here, they just train, so that's why we'll just have to go to the Infinity Castle arc. But Muzan wouldn't have been injected with the anti-Kibutsuji drug. Infinity Castle arc. Here, almost everything happens the same, with the Hashiras plowing through the lower ranked demons until they meet the upper moons. The face-offs stay the same, except that instead of 2 Demon Slayers, Akaza is now facing 3 Hashira level Demon Slayers that are honestly more than enough to beat him. Tanjiro's transparent world can easily outclass Akaza, and since Sabito is a prodigy, he can also learn transparent world from Tanjiro on the fly too. Without Inosuke, Kanao will instantly die alongside Shinobu, and Doma is going to have room to roam around and kill almost every single Demon Slayer that comes his way. Not only that, Kaigaku would most likely also blitz any other Demon Slayer that's not Hashira level. Meanwhile, the fight for Upper Moon 1 and Upper Moon 4 have the same results. The casualties of the Demon Slayers would pile up almost instantly, and it's going to cause a lot of trouble in the long run. Somehow, the Hashiras that fought Kokushibo encounter Kaigaku, and for one of them, it's going to be harder than fighting the Upper Moon 1. Why? If you didn't know, Kaigaku was one of the children that Gyomei took in before he became a Hashira, and he was the child that was responsible for letting the demon in that killed the other children. When Gyomei sees him, he's going to be so taken aback that he might not be able to move for a while. He might even be so conflicted to the point that he won't attack Kaigaku. This forces the burden on Sanemi to fight the Upper Moon, and keep in mind, Sanemi is wounded. Kaigaku is also very fast, and the only reason he lost in the original timeline was because he didn't know Zenitsu already had an even faster new breathing form. As the duel rages on, Gyomei is forced to kill Kaigaku as he sees Sanemi get even more wounded. After killing one of the children he swore to protect, he would be heartbroken. Gyomei is low on morale, Sanemi is severely wounded, and Doma is still on the loose. How can Tanjiro and the others push the advantage to their side? Well, it's hard. Muzan is just watching the Demon Slayer struggle, and while Gyomei and Sanemi regrouped with Obanai and Mitsuri, who just defeated Nakime, they'll encounter Doma next, and when Muzan spots Tanjiro, he'll immediately go to his location. The fight against Muzan will be completely different. First, the only ones facing him right now are Giyu, Tanjiro, and Sabito. Second, the other Hashiras can't provide backup because they're busy fighting Doma. Third, Muzan's not affected by the anti-Kibutsuji drug. What the drug did was that it had 4 stages: human conversion, biological aging, splitting prevention, and cellular destruction. Each one is important in helping the Demon Slayers kill Muzan, with the splitting prevention stage stopping Muzan from escaping using the same method when Yoriichi was about to kill him. The first stage also ages him 50 years in a single minute, which lowers his physical capabilities and unlimited stamina. Without all of these, it's almost impossible to beat him, which is why Nezuko will join the trio. With Nezuko's pyrokinesis, they might still have a chance at stopping Muzan since her blood demon art allows her to combust her blood, which has a special property that can disturb a demon's regeneration. The 4 of them will fight Muzan, and while it may take some time, the other Hashiras will eventually defeat Doma, with maybe Gyomei sacrificing himself for the win. When all of the Demon Slayers are present, they're going to gang up on the Demon King, but because they're severely wounded, they fall one by one. In the end, a one-armed Giyu, a severely wounded Sabito, and Tanjiro, alongside Nezuko, would be the only ones left. As they put up their final struggle, Muzan would mutilate all of Nezuko's limbs, kill Giyu, and force Sabito and Tanjiro into a corner. Sabito would try his best to save the Kamado siblings, as the future generation of the Demon Slayer Corps is with them. However, Muzan, who is basically still in peak condition, catches up to them. He'll kill Sabito and eventually devour Nezuko right in front of Tanjiro. That's when he'll realize that Nezuko is actually immune to the sun, and that right now, he was lucky enough to attain the one thing that he'd been searching for. As a final result, he would inject Tanjiro with a huge amount of his blood, hoping that he would self-destruct while in the process. Muzan leaves Tanjiro to suffer as he massacres the remnants of the Demon Slayer Corps, ending the 1,000-year struggle against him. No one would be spared, and the entire Ubuyashiki family is now extinct. Now that Muzan won, what happens to the world as we know it? Well, we can't say for sure, because while Muzan was busy finishing off the Demon Slayer Corps, because of rage, willpower, or the endless search for vengeance, Tanjiro assimilated with Muzan's blood. His wounds heal, he stands up, and his sharp eyes are now set on taking a revenge against the one who took everything away from him. But that's a what if for another day. Sabito's presence in the story completely changes the story of Demon Slayer as we know it, but what do you think? What would happen if Sabito trained Tanjiro? Or better yet, have you ever wondered what would happen if Naruto was reborn with all of his memories? Check out this video to find out. This has been the Amagi. Thank you for watching. Peace.